What's up? I'm Cotton. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about part 5 of Twin Peaks: The Return. So if you are new to my channel, I'm so glad you decided to watch this video. And if you are one of my subscribers, I'm so glad you came back to check out this video. So, part 5. We got a little spoiled there because we got we got 4 episodes right in a row. And now we just have 1. I was like, why wasn't there another one on there? I want to see more. It went by so quickly. There is one thing that I want to say that I forgot to mention in my video about parts 3 and part 4. I have a little theory. If you remember, Albert and Gordon Cole were having a conversation about Coop and about how it was a blue rose case. It didn't get any bluer than this. And he said that there was one person, a female, that would know what was going on in his head. And Albert says, I know where she drinks. I'm wondering if she is the infamous Diane. Are we gonna get to see her? I hope so. Okay, so now let's go straight into part 5. Very interesting episode. I found this to be a very interesting episode. A lot of motifs used in it that I found very interesting, and I really liked them. If you are not into spoilers, you don't want to watch the rest of this video because I'm going to be going over everything that I think is going on in the Twin Peaks world. And I don't watch any other videos on people's ideas on the show because I don't want to have it, mix with mine. Start episode 5. The hitmen are like calling their boss, who's the woman who's like, then they're like, you know what? No, we haven't killed him yet. We don't know what's going on. And she has to type this message in a very old looking like Palm Pilot type device. So then to this black box that comes up later again in the show, and it's got a red. Red is a color that we're seeing all throughout this show. It's definitely a motif throughout this show, and it's an important color. Blue is an important color, and green is an important color. These all have meaning. What they totally mean, I'm not totally sure. I know what blue is. I know blue is like the electricity. It is, the going in and out of the lodge. Blue is the conductor. Now as for the red is the lodge. Yes, it is red. I mean, yeah, we know that. But there's also lots of red images popping up throughout this episode, if you notice. Well, I noticed that. And the green, like Dougie's jacket, sport coat, whatever you want to call it. I want to call it an Exorcist green because it reminds me of that split pea soup from The Exorcist. I don't know about you guys, but it totally reminds me of that. Those colors are just really speaking to me right now, and I have some ideas. I'm going to hold on to those for a little bit because I want to see a little bit more of where this is going. Dougie's wedding band is found in the corpse, the headless corpse. I think the headless corpse is Major Briggs. I really do. Because when we saw in parts 1 and 2, we saw his head floating in the ether when Coop was in the ether and trying to, maneuver around, and he said blue rose, and it was just his head. See where I'm going? We know that Major Briggs has done some exploring, I would call it, I guess, exploration into this area, and there's been 16 hits over 25 years of his fingerprints. So that fire that Bobby told us about, I'm not really sure. I don't buy that. I don't think that there was. I don't believe it, but I do think something went down between the Bobbleganger and Major Briggs. There's a very important scene that takes place at the beginning of the episode where the Bobbleganger, he's in prison. He's lying on his bed and he's like, the food's going to come, like going through the things of what it is to be human. And he goes and looks into the mirror, and we have a flashback of Bob and the doppelganger cackling and laughing together, looking evil. And then we see part of his face morph into Bob's, and he says that he's glad he's still with him. So that leads me to believe that the doppelganger is more in charge than Bob. And I thought this anyway, simply because of the way that doppelganger works. He's much more meticulous. His style of killing is totally different than Bob. Bob is kind of like a feral animal. He is wild. He's full of rage. They're very violent. I mean, he's very violent. And like when he kills somebody, he bludgeons them to death. He doesn't just shoot them like the doppelganger does. The doppelganger is a little more sophisticated, does things more efficiently. I would, in my opinion, I would call that more efficient. You know, I mean, if you're going to get killed, I'd much rather just be shot instead of had my brain bashed in. Hopefully I'll never have to come to that kind of situation where I have to choose. You know, there's just a different style there. And I think this was a way of telling us, yes, this is who is in charge, who is mainly in charge of this being, and it is the doppelganger. I think that the doppelganger is definitely the dominating presence with this duo. So interesting. We get to see Mike, who is doing pretty well, and he has a really kind of funny scene with Steven, the loser. Total loser. Like, I mean, really? That was really funny. I really did enjoy that, and I was really glad that they brought Mike back for something so we could kind of see him. And we did see some other characters as well. We also see Frank Truman, that's Robert Forster's character. We see his wife come in and do this scene. And I don't know about for you guys, but for me, I felt like I was watching the original show, and I was seeing Nadine talk to Ed about the drapes. Do you guys remember that? The drapes and then the cotton balls and the grease. Remember? Yeah. She was so mental. This time it's about a leaky pipe, and it's with the sheriff. And it just really, really good. She gave me such Nadine vibes. We also find out something interesting with Dougie and his situation. He and his wife apparently owe people $50,000. For what? I want to know. This has to tie back into the thing in South Dakota. Something is going on there. It's part of the underbelly of this world. And I don't think that any of the characters that are in this universe are able to escape from that. And that's always going to be there. So I think that has something to do with tying them into this world of the doppelganger, all of the criminal element. It's not like they have a loan that they took out for $50,000. Why is the wife still not noticing that he is totally mental? I mean, there's something wrong with him. He acts like he's had a stroke. You know, my theory on this is that it's taking Coop a little while to adjust to being back into a body because he hasn't been in one in 25 years. Everything about him is slow because he's having to start all over. Like, you know, when astronauts come back from outer space and they've been in there for they've been in outer space for a really long time, they have to come back and do a lot of physical therapy and everything because their muscles aren't the same and they're not used to gravity. So that's the same kind of reasoning I have with this situation with Coop. He won $425,000 just playing those slots being Mr. Jackpots. That's a lot of money. And the wife has hid it. Why did she hide it? Why are you hiding your money? See, these are all big neon signs that point to something shady. I did think it was funny that Dougie had a vanity plate. Did anybody else think it was funny? Dougie LV. Like, Dougie Las Vegas. Dougie Las Vegas. I found it funny. And so when he does get to work, he sees this statue of a cowboy that he kind of is just transfixed on. He has his gun drawn. And there's something about that kind of triggers some stuff with Coop. And then we see more things that start to trigger Coop. Little things. The coffee. He drinks that like a baby. I mean, it's like a sippy cup and he won't put it down. I mean, he chugs that thing. His place of employment is called Lucky 7 Insurance. And, you know, numbers are important in this show. We've seen a lot of different numbers. And then we have the interesting scene with Tom Sizemore, or Mr. Celebrity Rehab, as some of us may know him. And what happens in this meeting is there's a flicker of green on his face, and Coop says he's lying. So I'm wondering, do you think Coop developed some sort of abilities while he was in the lodge? Is this like the after side effects? Does he have like supernatural abilities? Because the Bobbleganger has supernatural abilities. Why wouldn't Coop maybe get some? Just throwing it out there, that's an idea. Like, and then with the the junkie across the street from the house that that Dougie and the hooker were in. See, there's a lot of red and blue in those scenes, and that motif is there. It makes me think of the supernatural elements of the show, the red and the blue. And I mean, we have Blue Rose. David Lynch is showing us these colors for a reason, and they're gonna make us start to think. So if you have any thoughts about what you think all the colors mean, I'd love to know what you think down in the comments, and we can talk about it. And then we also see the Lady of the Night at the car wash, and the guy asks her, hey, is one of your Johns from Washington State? And guess what we see? A key. And if you're familiar with other things by David Lynch, keys are important and they mean something. So her kid taking that key from the Great Northern and putting that into the mailbox is going to have quite the ripple effect. So we see Shelly's daughter, who is played by the beautiful Amanda Seyfried, who resembles Laura Palmer and has a lot of Laura Palmer-esque things about her. The way she's dressed, her drug of choice, that scene where she is in the car and she's kind of high is kind of beautifully tragic. That's what I kind of took away from the scene. It was kind of a beautiful tragedy right there on her. That's what it was for me. That little moment that just kind of just took you on a little journey for a moment. It was reminding me very much of like, it reminded me of sitting like in front of a painting that really has a strong presence. It just was very beautiful shot, and it was just seemed something very tragically beautiful about it. And that also kind of brings in the part about it's happening again. So it is going to happen again, because it is happening. The second generation is making the same mistakes, and we're seeing that right in this moment. And it was a very beautiful moment, and it's, like I said, it was also a tragic moment. Her boyfriend is a total loser. He's a nightmare, and Norma knows that he's a nightmare, and Shelly does. But Shelly is, I guess, just can't say no to her daughter or show any kind of tough love. Something has happened. What happened between Shelly and Bobby? I really want to know. I kind of think maybe Bobby's the father, wouldn't you? Because if you look at those two people, and then you look at Amanda Seyfried, think, I could see that. As we saw in the previous episode, that, you know, there's a drug still flowing in Twin Peaks, and drug of choice happens to be, of course, cocaine. The Dr. Jacoby thing was very entertaining, and we got to see what he was doing with the shovels, and we saw Jerry and Nadine watching it, and that was fun. But what I really want to get to is the Roadhouse scene. I don't know about you guys, but do you know who that guy is that was in the booth? Rich Horne! That's right, he is a horn. Is that Audrey's son? Who is this guy? I want to know more. He is like dangerous and angsty and, you know, buying drugs from the police officer. That's what I'm guessing he was doing. I mean, why else would you put a bunch of money into a cigarette carton and act like you're not you're handing him a pack of cigarettes when you're just handing him money. That sounds like a drug deal to me. That scene also was reminiscent of the scene in Fire Walk With Me where Laura is talking to those two Johns. Like, you know what I'm talking about, when she like is kind of aggressive and Donna is there, but it's a really intense scene because the emotional stakes are so high. In this scene, it wasn't like that, but the language was kind of similar and the actions were a little bit similar, but it was a gender role reversal. I found that to be very interesting. The reason I only knew he was a Horne because I wanted to see who this character was when the credits were rolling, and I was like, holy moly, I can't believe that. Okay, I'm like, this guy is a player some way. He is going to be, I think he's going to be a player in this series. I don't know at what, but I find it very interesting that he is a Horne. And if he is Audrey's son, that would be even more interesting, wouldn't it? Because who's the dad? Or who's the mother? I don't know. I just know I want to know more about this character because he is interesting. And he's kind of dangerous and he's kind of reckless. And that sounds a lot like Laura Palmer. She was kind of dangerous and kind of reckless. Can you imagine what's going to happen if Shelly's daughter meets this guy? Stuff's gonna happen. Something is gonna happen. That scene wasn't just put in there for no reason. That is setting a precedent about this character. I think this character is a lot more complex than what, that scene, if you just take that scene for what it is. It's reminiscent on purpose. A lot of things with David Lynch have a lot of intent and a lot of purpose. And this scene had a lot of intent and a lot of purpose. And it laid down who this character was. But the thing is, don't ever paint any character in a David Lynch film, TV show, whatever, as one type of character, because they're always multi-dimensional. And that's something I really love about his work, is that he does do that. Because take even Andy and Lucy, who are pretty silly. In the series, they weren't just one-note characters. They had other stuff going on with them. I'm really interested in this guy, and I think it's gonna be very interesting to see how he ties in. It's almost like he's like he reminds me a little bit of Bobby as well. So it's a very interesting combination of a person right there who reminds me of these older characters, but he's new and he is the next generation. So we're seeing a lot of the next generation of Twin Peaks making the same mistakes that the other generation did. I do have an idea. Agent, she's comparing the fingerprints and something doesn't look right. My theory is that the doppelganger is a mirror image, right? So that mirror image, it's going to be reversed. So maybe the fingerprints are reversed. That's my take on it. That's what I think she saw. It's not the same because it's a blue rose case. Okay, then we have this really interesting scene where Doppelganger is taken to make his phone call. And the warden takes him, and basically it seems like what he's doing in this scene is just kind of saying, this is who you're messing with. He is establishing his dominance. That's how I took the scene. And it also had to do with electricity. So there was that motif is still going throughout the show. And it was, if you noticed, the lighting was more a blue tone. It was cool toned. It had the steel colors. It was a very cool tone set, very blue based. And of course that was done on purpose. Doppelganger is not a regular person. He has like powers, which makes me think that maybe Coop came back with some powers, like how he knew when he saw that glimmer of green, that he knew that that guy was lying. We haven't seen anything like this, but at the same time, the only person that we know that has been to the lodge and returned was Major Briggs, and when he came back, it was just like the military took him away, and it seemed like they did a whole lot of stuff to him, and he was all messed up. So somebody that spent a significant period of time, like 25 years, in the lodge, I'm sure they come back knowing stuff. I would think so. I don't think they just sat around and like twiddled their thumbs. Did he learn stuff in the lodge? I hope so. And I guess maybe he came back with some skills. I'm guessing. If you're with me on that, I'd like to know. If you're not, I'd like to know too. And I want to know how you guys think that Doppelganger did that whole electrical show for the warden. And I really do think that that was to establish his dominance and to be like, you can't handle me, basically. And he probably can't. I think that it is inevitable that there is going to be a showdown, or I'd love for there to be a showdown between Doppelganger and Coop when Coop is, you know, fully restored to his, you know, capabilities. And maybe he'll have other capabilities too. Because Coop, if you remember, Coop did have his own sort of power, because he had the thing where he would throw the Tibetan thing of deduction, I guess, where he would throw the rocks at the bottle. And also remember, he would have the visions. He had the vision about Laura Palmer in Fire Walk with Me, and he also had the visions in Twin Peaks, and he spoke to the giant. And so Coop does have ties to the supernatural. So we will see. I think we're going to see more of what those ties are, and maybe where they come from and why he has them. Because we don't really, it's not like Coop was totally just run-of-the-mill Mr. FBI agent by the book. No, he wasn't at all. He did things very unorthodox. I kind of think he had to have learned something from his time in the Black Lodge. I think when Coop gets his facilities about himself and pulls everything together, he's going to be quite the force to be reckoned with. And I think that he definitely is going to come back stronger and more in charge than ever before. And it's going to be very interesting, and I can't wait. I am loving this ride we're on. It is so much fun. I didn't want this episode to end. I just really didn't. I was enjoying myself so much. And you know, this was the only episode that did not end at the Roadhouse. I found the end of this episode to be sad. I really did. Because we end with Coop staring at the statue, not knowing really his place in the world, how to communicate, just not knowing who he is really yet. And I found that to be really, really sad, because the Agent Cooper that we know and love is so smart and witty and innocent. He has this beautiful innocence about himself that I always loved about that character. The non-verbal acting, that's some of my favorite moments, are when people aren't talking and just the communication that goes on non-verbally. I find that to be so interesting, and it heightens the stakes in a lot of cases, I find. And you can get a real taste for where the people are emotionally by how they are physically. That's what my thoughts are on part 5. I really want to see what happens with this Rich Horne. It's kind of funny, isn't it, Rich Horne? Because they're rich. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching this video. I am Cotton, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys. There's a bug. It's on my notes. There's a bug on my notes. Yes, I still write on paper. I don't type it in my phone. I like to write on paper. And I make notes during the show. I don't like bugs. Yes, I'm a girly girl and I don't like bugs.